Are you looking for options for integrating with Salesforce? Well, if you are, this Friends of Max video will hopefully be of some interest to you, where we take a look at a couple of the MuleSoft connectors that enable integration to Salesforce core. We will look at both the functionality and integration patterns they support to help get your integration kickstarted. Hello, I'm Paul Taylor and I work here in MuleSoft in the Customer Success team. So let's get started and take a look at some of the Salesforce integrations options available to use. The two connectors I want to review in this video are known as the Salesforce Connector and the Salesforce Composite Connector. These two support API connectivity to Salesforce Sales and Service Cloud, as well as the core Salesforce platform, but each provide access to different API sets. It should be noted that you will find separate connectors in Anypoint Exchange for Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Salesforce Marketing Cloud, among other Salesforce technology-focused connectors, but we won't be covering those in this video. Starting first with the Salesforce Connector, this connector supports a host of integrations including core SOAP, REST, bulk and streaming APIs for support of both standard and custom objects and their associated services, or even Salesforce Apex classes and methods. Whereas the Salesforce Composite Connector enables a series of requests within a single REST call with the ability to reference the output from one sub-request to the next sub-request within that single call. Let's have a look in a little more detail at the Salesforce Connector and the functionality it supports. First, a common trait with both connectors is the authentication and session management support. This enables API authentication to the Salesforce platform to be defined via configuration and doesn't require you to handle the low-level authentication process. Also, once an API has been authenticated with Salesforce Core, the connector will handle the session management, ensuring sessions are maintained or re-authenticated as required. Now, as I mentioned, the Salesforce Connector supports SOAP, REST, bulk, and streaming APIs. Though one of the great features of the connector is the actual API used is automatically selected based on the operation you want to call. That is, you don't have to specify you want to utilize SOAP, REST, or bulk API. You would just select the operation you are interested in, such as a query or an upset bulk operation, and the connector will leverage the appropriate API for you. The Salesforce Connector also supports calling Apex classes. Apex being Salesforce native programming language via both SOAP and REST, which have similar capability, though it should be noted that SOAP only supports XML as its data format, whereas REST supports XML, JSON, or even plain text. Though typically you'll find most REST API integrations opt to use JSON. Under the hood, accessing Salesforce data via the connector is usually done via the SOAP API, allowing the creation, update, retrieval, and deletion of Salesforce hosted data. The streaming APIs, which include the Salesforce platform events and change data capture APIs, enable event-driven architecture to be implemented, with updates made on the Salesforce platform then being published as events for which downstream systems can subscribe and process as required. The cool thing about this kind of pattern is it allows you to control how the event data is propagated, the speed of propagation, and even support replay capabilities in the case where you may need to recover from a downstream system failure. So to recap, the integration patterns supported by this connector are synchronous, asynchronous, and that includes events via the streaming API, and batch-based. The Salesforce Composite Connector by MuleSoft implements support for a range of core composite-type APIs. The definition of composite, of course, being that the API handles multiple different types of objects or operations, all within a single API call. That is, the calls are combined or composed in nature. The first of those, termed purely the Composite API by Salesforce, provides the ability to create a single REST call that contain a group of related objects. Now, the cool part of this API is you can reference new objects created in that same call later on to create relationships. As an example, you can create a new account and then its associated contacts all in the same API call, rather than first having to create an account, then obtain its reference ID before you can then create the contact and establish the relationship. Being able to do this all in one call provides both a performance increase by removing the need for multiple round trips and reduces the number of API calls that you need to make, so using less of the available API call quota. It should be noted you have the option to define any failures in that call, should either cause the whole call to be rolled back and not committed, or just the sub-requests that have failed. The Composite Batch API works in a similar way, but with this API, all sub-requests are isolated, meaning you can't reference new objects created in one sub-request from another sub-request. Though the upside of this API is being batch and therefore asynchronous in nature, you can perform many more operations in a single call. Lastly, the SObjects APIs. These two enable multiple related objects to be created and also the ability to create multiple operation requests in one go. So, I would like to review some of the benefits of using a connector over direct API integration. The connector really aids with the velocity of the development process by simplifying the creation of the system layer for Salesforce by providing a pre-built component that can be simply dragged and dropped into your project. Authentication and sessions management is configured and then handled in the connector, removing the need to understand in detail the authentication and session management handling and associated limits. You select the operation you wish to perform and the connector ensures the appropriate API is then used to fulfill the request. Basically, the heavy lifting has been done. You will find templates and examples showing best practice use of the connector are available, so jump-starting the integration process for you. But just before I finish, I should highlight a couple of areas you might come across that aren't supported by connectors. Not all possible API operations are available, and you may come across some edge cases that aren't supported. But in my experience, those usually are edge cases, and all common operations are available via the connector. Also, the chatter and tooling APIs aren't supported. So you would need to call those directly from your Mule app rather than via the connector if you have a requirement for those two APIs. And lastly, as a rule, only APIs that are classified as generally available, i.e. not in a beta or pilot program, will have support in the connector. Well, I hope you found this video of use and it's given you some pointers on the Salesforce integration options available when using MuleSoft. Thank you for watching.